Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome back to my YouTube channel, My Noahide Family. I want to talk a little bit about how important it is that everything we do matters. So every purpose, every deed, every word, everything we say has an effect. It matters. Hopefully it matters for all the good reasons. But we can be careless at times and say things, especially the bleh out, and we make a mess of things. I really want to talk about the reason why the book of Ruth was written. And I happened to be reading about it on and off this last few days, and I felt that it was really worthy of putting it into a video, however very small and short, but just to highlight the importance of the book of Ruth. Now, why is that? Well, because everything does matter and everything we do has a spin-on effect afterwards. So when we look at the book of Ruth, we see how quietly she went about things and it all turned into things for the better. And it stems from her undying kindness to her mother-in-law. And she was so devoted and loving to her, the kindness just flowed naturally. And as a result of that, we see how things turned out better for everyone. And, as a result of of Ruth's kindness, I beg your pardon, she ended up marrying Boaz. And you've probably all read the story of Ruth. If not, I suggest you go to your Bible and read it. But we'll touch on a few things today that are important. And bearing in mind as we go through this, that we remind ourselves too, you know what, every action I take has consequences. Let them be for the better. Let them be rewards of kindness both for me and the other people. So it is important that everything we do matters. Somebody asked me once, just sort of out of the blue, what are some things we could do, just everyday things we could do to be kind to someone, I said, well, your smile is one of the best gifts you can give. Say hello, greet someone kindly. And I said, just recently there was a homeless man who occasionally sits not out right at the doorway of the local supermarket, but you notice him there, and he has a dog, and it's in Australia we would call it like a blue cattle dog type, and you can tell by the way the dog looks at him and he looks at the dog. They're a bonded couple. And he just sits there. He's not asking for anything. He's just kind of rests in a bit of a shade under a tree in the car park, but it's somewhere he can sit and just rest. And as I did my grocery shopping, he crossed my mind many times. And I was so overjoyed because as I was leaving and coming out the door, I watched a youngish man handing quite a sizable bag of dog biscuits to that man. And I saw them exchanging and smiling and shaking hands. And it was such a blessing to see that act of kindness. And I just thought that was the nicest thing. And it didn't take, the way he behaved, he was an easy thing for him to do. I was so impressed. And by the time I'd sort of put my groceries in the car, that man was sort of making his way to his vehicle. And I felt compelled to go and say to him, I saw what you did. Your kindness, you'll be rewarded. That was a kind and loving thing to do. And he was kind of a bit overawed. He said, oh, I just saw him there when I went in, and I thought, well, you know. And I might add, he didn't buy a cheap bag of dog feed. It was the top of the range stuff. So that's an example that I experienced, and it stayed with me. And that man didn't do it for reward. It was such a natural thing for him to do. And, you know, I can still see the look on that homeless man's face, you know, when that man approached him with a bag of dog biscuits. So kindness has a flow-on effect. See how that kindness act that man did was kind to the homeless man and his dog, but it was medicine for me. I got a tremendous feeling of how good is that, you know. It's a flow-on effect, So let's move on and get back to the story of Ruth. So just bear in mind that it could take forever to go through all the wonderful things about Ruth, but I want to just use what I've said already to illustrate how goodness and kindness comes out of you doing something for someone. It has a flow-on effect, affects other people as well. Ruth, the story of Ruth, the book of Ruth, is really all about the process and the reward for what is called hesed. That means kindness and giving. And it's written to teach you how good is a reward for those who do a kindness. Now, whether that be handing someone a bag of dog biscuits or just being kind to them in word and a deed, doing something for them, you can never underestimate what ramifications your act of kindness can have. And so hesed is hailed by the Midrash as the most important theme of the book of Ruth. The key words appear 3 times in the book, modifying both God and humans, and namely Ruth and Boaz, of course. The word can connote loyalty, compassion, generosity, goodness, kindness, or steadfast love. So there's quite a few things that the word hesed embraces and means. So that's a word we should write out and put it somewhere in front where we see it frequently and remind us how important it is. It goes on and it talks about it is about the fact that kindness is both invariably rewarded and a reward in itself. All of society benefits from the generous behaviour of individuals, and the results of human compassion are apparent and efficacious. So there you go. It then continues on and talks about hesed or selflessness. While the major characters of this narrative, meaning the book of Ruth, indeed perform extraordinary acts of kindness, there must be more to this midrashic idea than meets the eye. After all, Ruth is not at all unique in performing acts of kindness. Characters throughout the Bible engage in acts of kindness and are defined by them. Consider Abraham, whose legendary kindness constitutes the cornerstone of the nation of Israel. Or his daughter-in-law Rebecca, whose extraordinary generosity is a precondition for her selection as the wife for Isaac. Actually, we can learn the importance of this character trait by paying attention to the Bible's representation of God. God acts with hesed. which he extends for many generations. And that quote comes from Exodus chapter 34, verse 6. Let's just move on and take a note of a couple of other things here. And that is that I want you all, incidentally, when you finish, to go and read the book of Ruth. You can read it over and over again and glean other little things that you've missed or just overlooked before. It's just a great lesson for us all to be mindful of. It goes on here and summarizes it by saying that all of Ruth's kindnesses have one thing in common. Ruth repeatedly sabotages her own personal interests in her acts of kindness. And if you, on that note, go and read the book of Ruth, you will see that crop up many times. You know, she chose to stay with her mother-in-law when her husband died. She chose to go and in loving kindness and devotion to her mother-in-law. Things like that. So Ruth shows us a pathway where we all should take note of how kindness is. It has its rewards. It's not just only an obligation for us to be kind to others, but the rewards from genuine kindness, that giving, that motion of either physically giving something to someone or just your act of kindness. It could be, you know, there's a thing that goes on now in Australia. I'm not sure how regularly, but what happens is a group of vets get together and nominate a day or a weekend they're going to be in the park, the local vets. And what they do is they do a free service for people who are homeless and have particularly cats and dogs or a bird, but dogs are fairly common. And what they do is free service, they check them, you know, they'll immunise them if there's something, if they have not been immune. They also have like the dog food people there, the companies, and they'll be giving away dog, you know, good quality stuff, not cheap stuff, giving dog food out. It's a real big thing, and particularly in the bigger towns and cities where you would have a number of homeless people. And it's the people give their time freely. They have products they give freely, and of course they have talks as well. There'll be vets giving talks or demonstration on how to care for your dogs, or you know, things like that. And there's merchandise that the general public can visit and buy as well. So that to me is a big thing. And if you live in an area where you've got lots of homeless, then maybe that's a suggestion. You could think that vets in the park once a year or something, because the thing is, at least their dogs get looked at least they might get immunised. And also the people that visit there to look at things they can buy and everything, they're probably likely to make generous donations too. So you talk to your local area vets and council maybe even, and try and organise something like that, because separating homeless people from their pets is very cruel. They can't afford always to give them the health treatment and even the proper food. So it's their companion, it's like their child, and you know, that's what keeps those people going. So if you ever see someone that's homeless with a dog, maybe buy a small bag of dog food and give it to them, something like that. That's a kindness, and it's a very real thing, that those people that have those pets and that are homeless, they'll go without food themselves to feed their dog. So, you know, buy them a hamburger and buy a small bag of dog food for their dog. It doesn't cost much, but you know what? That is a big help to those homeless people. Thank you for watching. Go ahead right now and read the book of Ruth. It is every time you read it, something different will pop out at you and you think, oh, hadn't thought of that. So please do take a page out of Ruth's book and practice kindness, because you're rewarding someone else with your kindness and you in turn will be rewarded as well. In the meantime, please take care and God bless.